Hello again, my name's Gabe Zolna. You know the video I posted yesterday, the Trump trap? That was sent to me by one of my viewers. And he and I spoke after I received what he had sent. And we were talking about the natural born clause. And I had told him that I posted a whole series of videos on the natural born clause. I highlighted the fact that the senator from Texas, Ted Cruz, wasn't eligible for a whole lot of reasons. Being Canadian is one of them. I talked about Marco Rubio. His parents were both Cuban citizens until Marco was 5. He's not eligible. I talked about Bobby Jindal, whose parents were Indians. I talked about Rick Santorum. Nobody seemed to care. Well, this particular individual sent me another email, and it's lengthy, but if you take the time to listen, you might learn something. The natural born citizen issue should never be strictly and only about where the person was born. It is linked with the fact that both parents must be American citizens at the moment of the child's birth, making Obama's ineligibility a matter of where he was born was an Alinsky tactic to make people forget that both his parents were not citizens at his birth. It's actually worse than that. They weren't even married. And no doubt, you are right. The fact that McCain was born in Panama became the issue, and the where then became Obama's escape. The lawyers in Congress knew that the other factor, equally important, that both parents were not American citizens, was slyly used as the main and only criterion for the Obama eligibility, and those congressional people could rest easy at the re-election time knowing that they would not find their office in jeopardy by cries of discrimination for being against a man who perceived himself to be black. Again, he perceived himself to be black. He's not black, he's a Muslim. And by the way, Muslims hate Negroes. Self-perception is more important than the facts, since the emotion of being black, and not just half black, was how Obama played the system. This regards a significant number of blacks in society who, if they are not in the gang on the left, are considered inconsequential by the left in the media. History tells us that this attitude was present at the beginning days of this country, and logic tells me that it was allowed to provide total and unquestioned freedom of action and thought in their society. However, when that freedom jeopardized the society itself, then a new look must be awarded. This freedom to see if it has to be limited by some kind of an amendment. It is somewhat similar to how an overly obese person is on the way to premature death unless some kind of intervention is effected. This rank, unlimited freedom, is going to put the country into more and more trouble and will progress to the point of no return, if not there already. An example of this unwanted freedom was made clear at the Democratic Convention in several ways. For example, when the woman police officer asked for a moment of silence to memorialize the death of police officers, almost immediately came the cries from the audience, "Black Lives Matter." And while they had the freedom to do so, it was morally wrong and lacked an element of traditional maturity. Another example is where the police officers were denied entry to the convention as if they were persona non grata or against the philosophy of the left. At least this exposes the hatred of the left for what it is right and important to society as regards to law and order. Another example is the reason for the big flags on the floor. They were used to curtain off anyone who had an alternate message from the accepted message of the Democrats at the convention. namely those who championed Hillary. Sure, the Republicans did a similar thing at their convention, but it was to hide those who had a message that had nothing to do with the convention, but was a distraction from the intent of an open and free convention. But the difference was that it was used by some of the Republican conventions on an unplanned basis, but apparently the Democrats saw it as a tactic to rob anyone of the opportunity to present a message that went against Hillary, and specifically to quell any message that might come from Sanders supporters. The fact that the Senate Resolution 511 listed first the fact that McCain's parents were American citizens was not a mistake, in my opinion. This is the first criterion. If this is not the case, who cares where the person was born? Then if both parents are American citizens, the second criterion is that the person must be born on American soil. I have read that he was born at a clinic on Coco Solo U.S. Navy submarine base, and at the time the clinic served the purpose of a hospital. Sure, there is the famous Gorgas Hospital in Panama City. Gorgas was the one who discovered that mosquitoes were the problem for why the French could not finish the canal. But at that time, merely going to the hospital was almost a guarantee that the visitor contracted some illness present there, and only added to the problems for the patient. To have a child there at the clinic was the natural thing to do for an American Navy officer. I also read that McCain's mother stated she heard other officers in an adjacent room cheering and toasting the father when McCain was born. Democrats want the NBC factor removed from the Constitution. For them, it is a hurt subject. They must fear that someday it will come out that Obama is ineligible to be president, and that they are to blame for it. The lawyers in Congress know that they are complicit in allowing Obama to be president. To alienate this, they hope to get another ineligible elected, and thus the reason so many like Cruz, Rubio, Jindal, and others had ambitions to be president and were encouraged to do so by these lawyers. Makes a whole lot of sense to me, huh? They're trying to cover their tracks by putting folks that they know were also ineligible. Totally insane. I want to thank my viewer for taking the time to write what he did. He put a great deal of thought into it. And I hope you take the time to listen to what he sent me. You might want to send a copy of this to your congressional representative and ask him or her what the hell's wrong with them. Why aren't they stopping this madness? Why aren't they holding Nancy Pelosi responsible? Why aren't they removing Barack Hussein Obama from office? He was never eligible. Nor is Ted Cruz, nor is Marco Rubio, nor was Bobby Jindal, nor was Rick Santorum. You don't want to hear it? Don't listen.